the quick story of John's Children, a British group of psychedelic modders that never quite made it big. But they once out-Who'd the Who, they faked a live album, they had a song and album band, and they had Marc Bolan in the band for a while. So please listen to this quick story if it interests you. If not, you can go to John's Music Hunt. In 1965, a guy named Chris Townson met guitarist Geoff McClelland and lied, saying that he knew how to play the drums. He bashed away at them and somehow proved himself worthy of joining the band. Soon enough at a gig, their singer ran off the stage and chased somebody, didn't show up again, so Chris's friend Andy Ellison jumped up on stage and started improvising something that was almost lyrics. After a bassist quit, they met John Hewlett. They liked his look and that they were all around the same height, so it didn't really matter that he lied about having music connections or that he didn't know how to play the bass. So naturally, the band called themselves The Silence because of how loud and probably obnoxious they were. One day, while they're supposed to be doing something productive, Chris and John went on an adventure in southern France, where Chris was arrested, naturally. As his buddy John went seeking help, he ran into Yardbirds producer Simon Napier-Bell, who was interested in the disheveled young lad. The producer soon befriended the whole band over drinks and witnessed them perform at a hotel swimming pool, where the singer jumped from the high dive with his microphone and cable, and the drummer kicked his drums into the pool. Multiple sources claim that Simon Napier-Bell called the band the worst he'd ever seen in his life, yet he agreed to manage them anyway. He felt that their terrible bassist was an asset, and they didn't want him to leave the band, so he named the band after the bassist, calling the band John's Children. He also convinced the band to dress nicely in all white, so that way when all hell broke loose, it would be more shocking to the audience. Their first single was recorded with mostly session musicians, with only Andy Ellison appearing on it. And once it cracked the top 100 in the US, the label that screwed over the Turtles, White Whale, requested a full album's worth of material. The American label believed it would be pretty easy to trick Americans into believing that this was a successful band from overseas, as long as they incorporated the obnoxious sound of screaming girls from A Hard Day's Night, the film by the Beatles. They called the album Orgasm to describe how exciting it was, and they included the photo of a happy young lady on the cover. Due to objections from a group called Daughters of the American Revolution, the album and its cover were banned in the US. It would eventually be released after the band had already broken up in the year 1970 with a new cover, and the album was never offered to their home country. In February of 1967, they released another single. While the first half featured session musicians again, the second half featured Jeff Beck playing along with the group. I was hoping that this song was something that I would actually want to recommend on my channel here, but it's kind of just a rip-off of I Can't Explain by The Who, and Jeff Beck doesn't do anything outstanding that you should go out of your way to listen to. At this point, it was decided that their guitarist, Geoff McClelland, wasn't really fitting with the others as well, and the producer offered them a young Marc Bolan to join the band. They switched record labels and were put on tour with their biggest influences, The Who, in Germany in April of 1967. It didn't last long though, as John's Children wanted to take the extremities of The Who's performance up a notch. Not only had they purchased the absolute loudest equipment possible at the time, but they also enjoyed having fake fights on stage with blood capsules. They would viciously rip apart pillows, and Marc Bolan would whack his guitar with a heavy chain. The crowd got rowdy, wanted to fight the band, and a riot ensued in which the band had to leave all of their gear on stage in order to escape with their lives. The Who wanted them off of the tour and they were sent home, but soon Keith Moon's own crazy antics actually left him going to the hospital for a short time, and so Chris Townson of John's Children had to replace Keith Moon for the remainder of the tour. I hate sponsors, give the video a like instead. You can also check out my original song that I posted last week or something, I don't know when this video comes out. During that same May of 1967, they released a single with 2 songs by Marc Bolan, but they were unhappy with how it sounded and only a few copies were printed, so of course they're extremely rare and valuable today. May 19th marked the last performance with Marc Bolan in the band, but they were actually having some local success at the time with a single that Marc had penned called Desdemona. It had originally been banned in the BBC for containing the lyric, "Lift up your skirt and fly," which they re-recorded with the line, "Why do you have to lie?" Fast forwarding things a bit, they posed nude with flower power, the drummer decided he should be the guitarist for a little while, and then him and the bassist came to blows. Then a dude named Trevor White was going to come jam with them, but they ended up breaking up before that happened. Simon Napier-Bell tried another attempt at a Keith Relf-type solo artist, putting Andy Ellison in the spotlight and recording some singles between December 67 and May 68. Eventually, Trevor White and Chris Townson, along with a guy named Ian Hampton, started a new band called the Jook, which John Hewlett was the manager of. They recorded some glam rock singles and disbanded in 1974. John Hewlett also was managing Sparks at this time, which Ian Hampton and Trevor White ended up joining. Ex-Sparks bassist Martin Gordon joined up with Chris Townson and Andy Ellison to make a new band called Jet. And I was really enjoying this Sparks-flavored album while writing this script. Chris Townson unfortunately experienced an injury that made it so he was only able to play one show with Jet before stepping back from music. This band would evolve into Radio Stars, and they released 2 albums in the late 70s. And though Andy was still being super crazy on stage and the audience was definitely enjoying it, the money just wasn't there, and they eventually had to call it quits. In the 90s, a new variation of John's Children would come to be, with both Chris and Andy, along with Boz Boorer of Polecats and Morrissey fame. They re-recorded a Marc Bolan original, as well as 2 new songs for an EP in 1999. Then with Martin Gordon, Trevor White, and Jet and Radio Stars member Ian MacLeod, they did a small tour in the year 2000 to celebrate a re-release of the Jet album, and they recorded a live album released in 2001 using all of their band names. Unfortunately, Chris Townson passed away in the year 2008, but the band had sporadically recorded since 1999, and they released a new studio album in 2011 titled Black and White. I just came across this band and scripted this video in the same day, so I'm not necessarily recommending these guys, but I thought it was really interesting and I wanted to share it with you guys, and maybe I'll be tapping into some of this music in the future. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I would like to hear some opinions in the comments because this is my first time just kind of making a video on a band I'd never really heard of, but I thought it was interesting, so just let me know. Please give this video a like, comment, and consider subscribing for more, and I really appreciate you. Have a happy listening session.